One late night in Paris, Driss is speeding through the city with his boss, Philippe. Stuck in boring traffic, Driss floors it and starts weaving through cars, ignoring every sign. When the police give chase, Driss bets €100 he can shake them, but the cops quickly box them in under a bridge. Unfazed, Driss now bets €200 he can get a police escort. He steps out and puts on an Oscar-worthy performance, acting outraged and claiming Philippe is in a medical crisis. The officers believe him when they see the wheelchair in the trunk and find Philippe convulsing in the passenger seat. A perfectly timed act. Believing it's a life or death emergency, the cops drop the charges and lead the way to the hospital. To celebrate, Driss blasts September by Earth, Wind and Fire, and once they arrive, he shares a quick smoke with Philippe as the police depart. Driss promises to handle the rest and drives off before the hospital staff can catch on. Their bond actually started months ago. Philippe and his assistant Magalie were interviewing for a new caretaker, but the candidates were all incredibly dull or awkward. The vibe changes when Driss barging in, cutting the line just to get a signature proving he applied so he can keep his unemployment checks. He's blunt, rude, and even flirts with Magalie. But Philippe finds his lack of pity refreshing and tells him to return tomorrow. Driss returns to his cramped home in the projects, trying to bathe, while his younger siblings swarm the place. He only manages to finish thanks to his responsible older sister, Mina. While waiting for his mother, he spots his brother Adama hopping out of a shady-looking car. When the boy enters, he lies about being at school and rushes out again, leaving Driss certain he's in trouble. That evening, his mother arrives, and he gives her a stolen Fabergé egg, claiming he was away on a trip. She isn't happy. He's been gone for 6 months, without a word. And now he treats her home like a hotel. Tired of his lies and struggling to raise the other kids, she kicks him out. Driss spends the night on the streets, sharing snacks and cigarettes with some neighborhood friends. The next day, Driss returns to the mansion for his papers. The housekeeper, Yvonne, gives him a tour and explains Philippe's rigid routine, eventually showing him a luxurious private room with its own bath. Driss is stunned by the bathtub before meeting Philippe, who offers a choice: the signed paper or a job. Driss takes the 1-month trial, and Philippe bets he won't last 2 weeks. Moving in, Driss learns the reality of being a caregiver, stimulating Philippe's legs, moving him to the chair, and assisting with hygiene. Things get very personal when he realizes he has to put on compression stockings, and even manually assist Philippe with his bowel movements. Despite his loud protests and claims that he won't do it, he eventually accepts the chores as part of the gig. Later, while snacking on the roof, he's interrupted by Philippe's daughter, Elisa, and her boyfriend, Bastien. Looking for a hookup spot, they are promptly kicked out by Driss, who refuses to share his beer. Driss slowly adjusts to the routine, even if he makes some rookie mistakes, like holding the phone out to Philippe instead of to his ear. He also learns to sort the mountain of mail, opening most of the letters, except for a specific set of private ones. When he finds a flyer for escort services, he decides to start a special folder for those instead of tossing them like Philippe requested. Life isn't just work, though. Driss continues his failed attempts to woo Magalie and occasionally orders his own company to the house. One morning, Yvonne finds some dangerous-looking weapons in his bag, but she stays quiet for now. Driss's task today is to drive Philippe, but he refuses to use the handicap van, because it feels like hauling cargo. Instead, he picks a sleek sports car. Philippe is hesitant and wants to be pragmatic, but he soon finds himself thrilled by the speed and power, despite Yvonne's disapproval. As they leave, they find a neighbor block the driveway, ignoring the "no parking" sign. Driss doesn't hesitate. He grabs the man by the collar and threatens him until he moves. Philippe is quietly impressed by the muscle, while Yvonne remains skeptical. Later at a museum, Philippe wants to buy a painting that Driss thinks is a joke. Just a red splotch on a white canvas. Afterward, Philippe's relative warns him that Driss has a violent criminal record. Philippe doesn't care about the record. He values Driss because he doesn't treat him with pity. After another rejection from Magalie, Driss eats with Yvonne and listens to Philippe dictate a poetic letter. Yvonne explains the situation. Philippe has a long-distance pen pal named Eleonore. These are the letters Driss isn't allowed to see. Their romance is purely intellectual, they've never actually met. Driss then teases Yvonne about the gardener's crush on her. That night, Driss is woken by a sound on the monitor. Philippe is struggling to breathe during a night terror. Though he tries to ignore it, Driss's heart wins out. He goes in, soothes Philippe with a wet cloth, and stays until he calms down. Philippe eventually wakes, gasping for air. Driss acts fast, bundling Philippe in blankets and taking him for a 400 am stroll through Paris. It's Philippe's first time seeing the city at night in years. As he relaxes, he explains that medication can't stop the phantom pain he feels. Watching some women walk by, Philippe confesses he can no longer have sex, but still finds pleasure in having his ears massaged, as they've become highly sensitive. When the pain flares up again, Driss shares a joint with him. Philippe is skeptical but ends up loving the high. Later at a diner, Philippe opens up more. He met his wife in college, and though they were deeply in love, she suffered 5 miscarriages before being diagnosed with a terminal illness. They adopted Elisa shortly after. Philippe lived for adrenaline. Paragliding gave him that rush. But a crash during a storm broke his neck. He tells Driss his true disability isn't the wheelchair, it's the absence of his wife. After some laughs, Philippe notes the date Driss has officially passed the 2-week bet. He's hired. But Philippe has one condition. He needs the stolen Fabergé egg back. It was a gift from his late wife. She gave him one every year, and he has exactly 25 to mark their time together. The next day, Driss finds Mina at school. She's annoyed he only calls to ask about the egg, and she mentions the police have been calling the house looking for him. Later, he finds Adama, who admits he was caught with drugs. Driss tries to take him to lunch, but the boy hops back into the dealer's car. Back at the mansion, Driss listens as Philippe dictates another letter. He thinks the purple prose is ridiculous and tells Philippe to be more direct. He's shocked they've been writing for 6 months without even a photo. Finding her number on a letter, Driss ignores the rules and calls her, forcing Philippe to actually speak to her. The call goes so well that Philippe is now constantly on the phone, even during a trip to the opera, where Driss can't stop laughing at the singing. The next day, Driss convinces Philippe to send a photo to La Honor, picking one that shows the wheelchair. Later, while Driss is painting, Elisa barges in for a cigarette and insults his art. Furious, he kicks her out and finds Philippe asking Yvonne to swap the photo for an old one from before his accident. She hides the wheelchair photo in the escort file, just as Driss bursts in, demanding Philippe discipline his daughter. Yvonne agrees. Philippe says he'll talk to her, but he's more amused that Driss has taken up painting. As weeks pass, the bond deepens. Driss takes Philippe to play in the snow and takes him along on his morning runs. Philippe buys Driss his first suit and finally stands up to Elisa while Driss listens in, smiling. When Driss finishes his masterpiece, he shows it to Magalie, getting a slap when he tries to kiss her. Philippe, however, loves the painting and promises to help sell it. They continue to have a blast, driving fast, getting high, and even hiring professional massages together. When Philippe's birthday arrives, he's depressed. It's an annual tradition of pity visits from relatives checking to see if he's still alive. Philippe expects a boring evening. While guests listen to stiff classical music, Driss finds Elisa crying. She took some of Yvonne's pills because Bastien dumped her and insulted her. Driss agrees to handle the boy for a price. Meanwhile, Philippe shows off Driss's painting to a wealthy relative and conned him into buying it for 11,000 euros. Driss chats with Yvonne, who mentions Magalie is in a rocky relationship with someone named Fred, giving Driss new hope. As the party winds down, Philippe tries to educate Driss on the greats of classical music. But Driss just cracks jokes. When the band finishes, Driss hooks up his iPod and plays Boogie Wonderland, sparking an impromptu dance party. He's a natural dancer and gets the entire high society crowd moving, much to Philippe's delight. Later, while tucking Philippe in, Driss finds a photo from La Honor. She's beautiful and wants to meet next week in Paris. On the day of the date, Driss and Yvonne help Philippe through dozens of outfits, while Yvonne takes Philippe to the restaurant. Driss spends his day off finding Bastien. He convinces the boy to apologize to Elisa, bring her croissants daily, and fix his terrible hair. Afterward, he visits his mother's workplace, just watching her from a distance. At the restaurant, Philippe waits nervously, but La Honor is an hour late. Overcome with anxiety, he calls Driss to pick him up. He leaves just as La Honor is walking through the door, missing her. That night, Philippe takes Driss on his private jet and hands him the cash from the painting sale, leaving Driss beaming. They head to the mountains, where Philippe insists on paragliding. Driss is terrified at first, but once they're in the air, he finds he actually loves the view. When they return home, Adama is waiting for Driss, sporting new scars on his face from his street life. Adama stays silent about the trouble he's in. Driss hides him in his room, calls Mina to tell her Adama is safe, and goes to settle Philippe for the night. Philippe, however, wants to talk. After showing Driss a painting, He asks about Driss's past. Driss finally reveals that his parents are actually his aunt and uncle who brought him from Senegal because they couldn't have kids. His real name is Bakary, but they changed it to Idris. Eventually, his aunt did get pregnant, and after his uncle died, the family grew with more kids and different men. Philippe mirrors Driss's earlier advice Adama needs his brother. Philippe fires Driss. Not for failing, but so he can be with his family. He tells Driss he shouldn't spend his life pushing an old man around. The next morning, after a newly groomed Bastien delivers the croissants, Driss packs up. Magalie comes to say goodbye, and when Driss makes one last move, she introduces her partner, Fred, short for Frédéric. Driss realizes she's not into men and laughs it off. Leaving the house, he returns the monitor to Yvonne and teases her for lying about Magalie. She hands him the escort file he started. He's disappointed to see the wheelchair photo he chose was hidden there. He tosses the file but keeps the picture. Outside, he finds a car blocking the gate again. Even though he doesn't work there, he makes the guy move. When Adama asks why, Driss says it's about principle. Hours later, the brothers pick up their mom, while Philippe tries to eat with his new caretaker. The new guy is stiff and clinical. Philippe loses his appetite and leaves the table. With Yvonne out with the gardener, he's alone. As days pass, Driss settles back into his old neighborhood. He hangs with his friends, and makes sure the local dealers stay away from Adama. He interviews for a driver job he's underqualified for, but wins the boss over by calling himself pragmatic and talking about art. He gets the job. Meanwhile, Philippe is in a downward spiral, miserable and refusing help. One night, his phantom pain is so bad, he won't let anyone near him, so a worried Yvonne calls Driss. This brings us back to the start, the high-speed chase and the police escort. After the adrenaline rush, Driss drives Philippe to the coast, where the ocean breeze finally calms him down. Sometime later, Driss gives Philippe a fresh shave before taking him to a restaurant for lunch. But Driss isn't staying. He tells Philippe someone else is coming. He gives back the Fabergé egg, wishes him luck, and walks away. Philippe is anxious about being alone until his date arrives. It's Léonore. She's thrilled to see him and clearly doesn't care about the chair. The real Philippe Pazo de Borgo now lives in Morocco with a new wife and kids. The real Driss, Abdel Yasmin Selou, runs his own company and has a family of his own. To this day, the two men remain the best of friends.